the stress level on managers right now is off the charts. And so let's start with this though. What are those characteristics, right? Like, because there's characteristics of being a top sales rep and being a top manager are, like you said, are different because it's just a different role. But historically, it's like you've made the numbers, you've done the job. What are the things that you look for in, like, say you have a team right now and you're looking for a manager within a group of 10 reps, right? And they're all varying degrees. Some are better than others as far as their numbers are concerned. Some are jackasses, some are, but like for you as a, like an executive leader looking down, if you were to pick the rep of those 10, what would be the characteristics you would look for outside of results? Let's assume that they're either consistently hitting them or, every once in a while they miss, but they're not throwing eggs, then they're not blasting it out of it. They're not the number one rep, but they're hitting their numbers, give or take. What are the characteristics you look for to make that transition a good one?
That's such a good question. I think some of it has to do with leadership attributes, but at the first level, the first thing I'm looking for is someone who understands how to subdue their own ego. Because I would argue that an oversized ego is a pretty good thing for an individual contributor. I want you to have a little swagger and cockiness and rub off, and be a little Teflon-like when you get people criticize you. Like, big ego works in sales as long as you're not pissing off your customers, you're not ridiculously cocky. It doesn't work at all when you're in the management role. The manager that wants the credit and the limelight and to be on the stage and to be taking credit for the results and get all the glory, that gets old really, really fast. So if I'm trying to pick the leader of a team, I want someone who actually can express to me they get their thrills by seeing someone else succeed. They don't have to be the one on the stage. They could be the one behind the stage clapping quietly, knowing that they coached them, they whispered in their ear, they challenged them, they held them accountable, but someone else is going up on stage to get the trophy. And if there's a way to find out who gets their jollies, like whose boat gets floated when they see other people win. And there's like a little bit of a servant sacrificial leadership bone in the person who really wants to see other people do better than themselves. And that along with, there's a fancy word, but followership. Someone who has those natural attributes that people are drawn to them or will run through walls for them because they demonstrate that they care and they're there to support. And one of the things I talk about in the book is you got to get to know your salespeople well enough that you can treat them differently. It's okay to discriminate, not based on race or gender, right, or religion or age. You discriminate based on performance and on style. And if some people get their jollies and get really motivated when you treat them this way, then do it. And if you have someone who's really, really good, you may bend some rules for them. There's nothing wrong with that. They've earned it because they're performed at a certain level. So back to your question, it's followership and it's the ability to show some humility and get excited about winning through others. If we could identify who that person is, because you don't necessarily need the biggest sales nerd, trainer, technically competent manager, because the heart is as important as the skill. And holding people accountable and giving them some feedback and pushing on them, that doesn't require being a sales trainer expert, nor does it require being the most driven, kick-ass number one producer. And, on this topic, and I'm curious for your take on this, I am regularly having conversations with top producing salespeople, asking them to rethink whether they really want to go into management or not. Is it their ego that's driving it, or is it because it's not necessarily more fun and you might not make more money? So I'm always on the side of the salesperson. Like, are you sure you want to do that? You want all the politics? You want all the admin? You want all that burden? Or you want to just go have some fun and make some money? Because that's what you've been good at.
And I think that's not what enough leadership does in general, is like literally mapping out what management really is. Not just because that's the next step in your career. Because I think so many people just go through the motions of what they're supposed to do next. Oh, well, I'm a top performing rep. I'm supposed to be a manager. Then I'm supposed to be a VP of sales. Then I'm supposed to be an executive, right? And you got to back up and say, is this something that you really want? Right. And I don't think enough of it. It's almost like now, have you read Jolt Effect actually recently? So Jolt Effect is a good one. And I'll make the correlation here with you, which is de-risking the situation. So Jolt Effect is the same group that Corporate Executive Board who wrote, Challenger Sale, Challenger Customer, all that. And Jolt is something interesting. They got me thinking about the idea that, everybody talks about how no decision is our biggest competitor, right? People, no decision. But it's really not no decision, it's indecision, because there's so many options out there that people are afraid to make the wrong choice. So our job is to de-risk it for them. So for instance, I used to say, we're all good at reverse engineering a sales process, right? Oh, you want to go live date on January 1st? Well, there's 2 weeks to do this, 2 weeks to do that, da, da, da. So if you want to go live, like, then we got to sign this week, right? And then there's okay, cool. Now you have that date. But then there's how do you get rid of no decision? Well, you ask the question, well, hey, just out of curiosity, what if we don't go live on January 1st? Like, what's the impact of the business, right? That's trying to understand what no decision is. But what Jolt Effect got me woken up is, what if you make the wrong decision? Like, what if you choose wrong here? What does that look like? And it's counterintuitive, because in sales, we've all been taught to paint the beautiful outcome picture and then back into it, right? Well, let me paint this picture of how beautiful your life can be with my solution and then let me show you how to get there, right? Because you're painting this euphoric state, you're trying to show that vision. But now nobody believes that vision, right? So now you actually what I've started to do is literally start asking, hey, Mike, so literally, like, what happens if you choose wrong here? Say you choose the wrong sales trainer and it's a dud and whatever, like, what does that mean for you personally? What does that mean for the business? And that's where it's this open therapy session. And a lot of people are scared because they're scared to, like, get the person thinking about worst case scenario, but they're thinking about it anyway. So let's bring it up to the surface. As it relates to reps, I would do the same thing. I'll be like, hey, management, this is what management is. It is not pretty. You're going to get way more responsibility. You're going to have to do way more shit. You're not going to get any credit. It's all about everybody else, not about you. You're probably not going to pay, So let me map out this bag of shit that you're about to get into here. Are you cool with that? And if I can basically, it's almost like I disqualify more than I qualify now with clients. Like, once you fit the mold, I then start asking all the questions why you shouldn't do business with me. I start leaning in on the stuff with management of, like, look, let me literally tell you all the shitty things that you are about to face. And if you're cool with that, now let's make this trip. But if you are not cool with that, do not jump into this field. Stay an individual contributor.
I love everything about that. I love the analogy for this particular situation. And I'm also just thinking, as a salesperson, when you come across like that, you're selling from such an abundance mentality. You're communicating, I don't need this. And I want to make sure that you know what you're getting into with me here. And it's like this human, normal connection, like real people being honest with each other, which is just really attractive compared to the glitzy, hyped pitch.
Like, it's all going to be perfect.
Right,
no,
right.
It's not.
It's like, this is more reality. Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes guts, though. It takes a salesperson who understands themselves and is willing to go there. A lot of times when I ask salespeople, why don't you do better discovery? Why don't you ask these harder questions? And they get honest. They go, because I don't know what's going to happen in that conversation. I'm more comfortable going back to my demo or my pitch because I know what to do there. If I ask a question and they tell me about some crazy thing they have going on, then I'm in a conversation and I'm like, exactly, that's the idea. But if you don't have business acumen, or you haven't been mentored well, it's an uncomfortable feeling for the younger or less mature seller to be in that role.
Oh, without question. And I do think that's actually one of the things I keep telling, teams. If you want to improve your results, one thing that you can do is forget about techniques here or any of that stuff. Just go improve your business acumen. Literally go learn how to speak the language of business. Talk to the personas that you're selling to. One of the things I tell most of my clients to do is, in a euphoric state, if you're going to kick off a campaign to a certain, like, say you're putting together a cadence to a certain persona, CIOs in healthcare, right? Well, before you do that, do 30 minutes, have the reps all get together, right? And everybody Google CIOs, healthcare, priorities, challenges, 2023, whatever. Then ideally, go get a couple of customers who are that role, who are that persona, and have them sit on a Zoom session and have the reps ask them questions. What's a day in a life look like? What were you doing before using our solution, and what are you doing now? Like, forget our marketing speak. What's the value you get from our solution, right? And so now they're seeing the person, not the persona. They're seeing the person that is using their solution. So now when they create messaging, it's a lot more genuine. It's coming from the actual source. And when they, holy shit, potentially get somebody on the phone, they can actually have a real conversation based on something they just talked about. I was speaking with
this other CRO, just told me she's dealing with this situation. John, 100%, I'm going to put an exclamation mark. Sometimes when I do a sales story workshop, I ask them to go call 3 of your favorite customers and have them remind you why they bought from you, what were they facing, how have you improved their life, what did you save them from? Because they're going to give you more compelling language than you would dare say on your own. So that is the best practice for building case studies, use cases, or even just getting compelling language to use when you're prospecting or in your presentations. Get the customer to tell you. I love that.
all day, every day.
I want to go back to coaching real quick because
Yeah.
we started going down this path even early on with Belichick, and this is the thing that confuses me: how little time managers actually spend proactively working with their people. Not just chasing a big deal or working with someone who's new or someone who's struggling, but like going in their calendar and planning out, working through their roster of sellers from top to bottom, field work or sitting in virtual sessions, working alongside, because you can't replicate that somewhere else. Sales training, it doesn't make up for, training someone or leading a good team meeting doesn't make up for you working one-on-one or watching someone. And I told this story in the book, and I'm kind of a newer, passionate golfer. It started over COVID when we were all locked down. And I have this incredible golf coach who the only reason that I even have a relationship with him is because we went to the same church. I'm not qualified to be his student, but he's number one instructor in Missouri. And he gave me some lessons and I got kind of better. But then, I don't know, 6 months later, he called me up. He goes, "We haven't hung out in forever. Let's go play 9 holes of golf." And I'm like, "You want to play golf with me?" And then the whole experience, and I tell the story in the chapter of the book on coaching, I was dual processing this incredible reality that I was playing golf with this world-class golf coach. And I was kind of like the salesperson who was a little nervous, but also excited that the incredible sales leader was coming with me in the field. And at the same time, I was benefiting as the golf student watching this guy. But I take people through the details of how he prepped me for the round and watching me warm up and then thinking through strategy and then just whispering a couple times on the course, not too much. And then after we went out and had dinner and he started painting a picture of what I could become and giving me some critique. And I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. And my takeaway from that whole experience was this question I asked, and I did a blog post on it. And that's why I made such a big deal about it in the book. If sales managers would do for their people what my golf coach did for me in a couple of freaking hours, just working alongside, watching with me, challenging with me, asking me questions. I went out the next day after he played 9 holes and I played 18 holes with a buddy. I broke my personal record by 4 strokes. And I'm telling you, the only reason is because I was asking smarter questions. I prepared differently. I thought differently. And I had this incredible vision in my head of the golfer I was becoming because my coach told me that. And I think, could you imagine if managers would do that level of prep when we work with our people, or that much debriefing after, not just bless them and envision them, but also give them some good critique? Wouldn't a bunch of that stick for the next time they were out selling by themselves? And I just want to plead with managers, get in your calendar. I know your company's burying you in all kinds of other nonsense, but if you're not working with your people and you're not watching them and you're not giving them feedback or helping them prep, how are they going to get better? And, you could hire us to train your people and that's great, but that's not necessarily the answer. So I'm pleading with managers to please, you got 2 levers. You can hold them accountable, but then you got to help them get better.